¿Qué pasa, mi raza? You're now tuned in to I Don't Know That's Perfect. I am your host. I am Mario from the South Side, and today we have a very special episode for you guys. Today we are having a very, I guess you could call it roots episode. As you know, we like to support a lot of our local artists, a lot of our local creatives, but also a lot of time those local creatives start to blow up, and sometimes we're lucky enough to catch them before they get a little too big. And the reason I say that is because the special guest we have is somebody that's very talented in so many ways, and especially when it comes to expressing themselves through their music and their content. And the guest that I'm talking about is xBValentine. Valentine. Sorry. Damn it. I did it.
It's all good.
We were just talking about that. Golly, my bad.
It's okay. You're just pronouncing it in Spanish.
There
you
you
added
go.
a little sauce to it.
It's that Mexican coming out. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate you for coming out. I know it's quite a drive from up north.
Yeah, but it was chill. I was jamming.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. I feel very blessed, just to be here and,
Of course. Yeah. So just for those that are tuned in, go ahead and give a little background, introduce yourself as to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so, I like to consider myself a triple minority. I always like to come in with that because, I am a woman and I'm Latina, but I'm also a part of the LGBT community. So I try to represent just kind of everything that I am as far as, my women, my Latinas, and also just like the community that I am a part of. And it's important to me just to be as vulnerable as possible as an artist, for one, and just to really cater to everybody that I feel like listens to my music.
Yeah.
And obviously I know it's not just women and just Latinas and just LGBT people, but I know there's also men out there.
Of course, it's all inclusive in so many ways.
So I try to provide music that I feel like can just kind of be received by anybody.
Of course. Yeah, and I feel like even when listening to your music, it's not anything to where it's like, I feel like, oh, I have to be a certain type of person to listen to. Like, your music's a vibe. Like, everything that I've listened to so far, especially the album, it's a vibe, and it's something that I could just jam, and it puts me in a sort of like, it's something that I can listen to when I'm going to the gym and just want to get a good quick workout, So I admire that about the production that you have going on. But I guess taking it back, how long have you been making music now for?
Oh man, it feels like forever.
Yeah.
But I started when I was 15. Was the first time I ever stepped foot in a studio.
Okay.
And from that point on, I continued going at least once a month. I tried to go as often as possible. Obviously it was a little expensive, so I couldn't go as frequently as I'd like to. But it really started at that age is where I really discovered that this was just something that I felt like genuinely something I was born to do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pursue it as much as I could and to my best ability at the time, obviously being so young. But I just kept going to the studio and I kept just trying to perfect it as best as I could. I never really knew where I was going with it. I just knew I was going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was willing to put in the work just to find out where that place was going to be.
Process.
Yeah. So, and it's still a process. I'm still learning as I'm going. And, I know I haven't reached the finish line or whatever, but I just know I'm closer than I ever used to be.
That's awesome. Did you grow up around a lot of music, or was that something that was constantly around you?
Honestly, I didn't grow up around any musicians.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family played an instrument. No one did anything to really be like, hey,
just a fan of music.
I think I just always loved the music, and I had a different appreciation for it, and I was just super, amazed by musicians. But I did have a cousin who I was really close to, who was like a brother to me, who heavily influenced everything I do. He was the first person to really tell me straight up, like, you got a gift and you need to do something with it. He's like, this isn't something you can just do as a hobby. He's like, you really need to
That's awesome. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So, I shout out to him because he's the reason why I do this.
Yeah. And then look at where you're at now.
Yeah.
It's awesome because it's like, not only just being from Texas, but Georgetown of all places. It's like, is it something that shocks people most common, especially when you talk about other Texans?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I think it's funny because, there's this video circulating around with me and Paul Wall because the first time I really got to talk to Paul Wall, he just randomly asked me where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Georgetown. He looked at me like, what? He's like, for real? He's like, no one really knows it. He's like, but I was born there. I was like, you're playing with me. I was like, I thought you were from Houston. He's like, he grew up in Houston all his life, so he
born and raised in
he puts
Georgetown.
On for Houston, but he just happened to be born in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And he has family in Buda, and so I just thought it was crazy. And we put the video up, and everyone's like, what's in Georgetown? They ain't nothing in Georgetown. Why y'all repping Georgetown so hard? I was like, bro, we're just born there. That's it. I can't change where I'm from. But I just thought it was cool because growing up in Georgetown and being a Latina, I was telling you off camera, it wasn't easy growing up in a town where Latin people do not have a voice there, and I think it's just important for me to be one of the first people that's from there to like that's not a white kid.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I'm trying to like put on like, look, so I just want to be a representation for the Latin people there more so.
Of course, and that's important. But let me find out, you're the reason that Georgetown is booming right now. Everybody in the country saw that video, like, okay, we gotta
everyone thinks Paul I was just walking around Georgetown. Nah, I mean Georgetown's just like, it's a safe place to live, you know. So I think it's a good place to, you know, raise your kids, and you know, like I was telling you earlier too, the education system is really good there, you know. That's somewhere I would want my kids to go to school. You know what I'm saying? Because I went to school there, and I know the opportunities that are given are actually a lot better than other towns.
Oh, for sure, so, 100%.
You know, other than, you know, how small it is, and, you know, how it's predominantly more like, what was I say? It's more conservative. I think the education system definitely is.
It's good. It's a good one for sure. And obviously a lot of people see it now too, with all like the large influx of people that are moving there. Because I mean, I've seen prices for some of the houses out there, and they're like $500,000.
They've
like,
gone up. It's crazy.
Couldn't be me though. I'm gonna stay south. I'm gonna stay south. So that's my home. I'll stay there. That's what I can still afford for now.
Yeah.
But I guess afterwards, once you started kind of getting in and out of the studios, as you were saying, at what point did you kind of like really realize that, like, okay, like I got something that let me really just, you know, obviously you had the support from your brother, from your friend. At what point was it that you reached and you were like, okay, like I'm like this, he's for real, like this shit is really gonna happen for me?
I think it was more so the first time I really started doing open mics. There was this hookah lounge that's no longer even a building. It was called Forte Hookah Lounge, and I was doing open mics there on Thursday nights. I was 16 or 17. I don't remember how old I was. I wasn't even allowed to be there, but the owner was like, perform and then you got to go. And I remember the first time I did the open mic. This is my first time performing, by the way, like somewhere that's like, you know, complete strangers besides my family and friends. And I just remember like the feedback people were giving me. A lot of people were coming up to me like, yo, you're so dope. Like, what's your name? Like, I didn't catch your name. Like, tell me, like, can I follow you? And I was like, oh my God, like, this is
you left
cool.
An impression.
Yeah, I was like, and it was new to me. And I just remember I was like, I want to come back next Thursday.
You keep doing it.
And I kept doing it. And I was starting to see like, wow, people actually like what I'm doing. And I wasn't even like that great of an artist, but they had an appreciation for it. And I got addicted to that feeling. I was like, man, I really want to just keep trying to see how much more I can get out of people. And it really got to a point where I was putting music out on SoundCloud consistently. You know, I was trying to put out as much music as possible just to get my name out there. And at some point I was starting to get more vulnerable with like my lyrics and the stuff that I was saying. And I started getting like people messaging me like, yo, like your music's actually really helping me get through these tough times. Wow. And that's when it took this like crazy shift for me, where I'm realizing like, wow, like, you know, what I say really matters, and what I'm putting out, like people are actually care for it.
They listen to it.
I had to kind of go with a different approach. Like, okay, this isn't just for me anymore. This is something that it's for other people as well, you know. And I think I had to start to cater to an audience now that I used to not have. I used to not have an audience at all. So it's just crazy to me that now I have people
That's
listening.
awesome. What was the music that you were making then? I know, because I know a lot of the music that like I feel like people could relate and would use it to help them through stuff. Because even some of the subject matter that you touch on today, it's a lot of like mental awareness stuff. Was the music very similar that you were making when you first began? Yeah,
so it's funny because the first song on my album that I just released is called Darkest Days, and in that song I touch on the things I was talking about in that time. The only difference is I already got through it,
like
and at that time I was going through it. So the only difference is now I'm speaking about it as past tense, you know, but at the time when I was writing this music, I was currently going through it. So it's just a different, you know, it had a different meaning because I hadn't quite gone through it yet. I was just venting about this is what I'm going through right now. So it's a little bit different.
So it's a different perspective from like what points in life.
And it's funny because I have all those projects are on my SoundCloud, but they're private. So I did go and listen to it prior to writing that song, Darkest Days, because I had to put myself there again because I wanted to write from a different place this time. So it was just kind of cool to listen like, wow, like this was me at 16 years old and I was really going through it. So hearing myself, I'm like, wow, like I was a kid.
Was it hard for you to listen to it at all? Like, did it like, I know sometimes like when you go back and you revisit some old past trauma, it can be triggering for some people.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, I'm very fortunate because I feel like I have been given the opportunity to heal from a lot of things that were considered, you know, trauma to me. And, I thank my parents because, they put me in therapy at a young age. They did try to give me the proper support system just to be able to get through the things I was going through. So I think that's why I'm able to listen to that music now and, like, feel good about it, knowing, like, hey, like, I remember the way I felt when I wrote this. I remember my mentality, the person who I was. So to hear, like, all of that and know that that's no longer who I am, it's a super, like, refreshing feeling, knowing like, wow, like I got through that. And now I can speak about it in a way where like it just feels, I don't even know how to explain.
And even then, like, because I feel like at that point you were obviously, there's people who still found it like helpful to listen to, but not even now, knowing that you actually went through something like that and still made it out alive, like it can even be more helpful to a lot more people in different, because nowadays, it's, I feel like back then it was something where it wasn't as much acknowledged, especially for like Mexicanos or Hispanics or anybody like that. It wasn't very common. But nowadays, it's like it's people more vocal about it. But I feel like it's still not all. There's a lot of misconceptions that come to it. And having a song like that, I feel like it's very important and it's very powerful. So that's awesome.
Appreciate that.
So now going after that, you kept going to the open mic. Did you start getting did that help for you to network and build relationships?
Yeah, so honestly, if it wasn't for me doing open mics, I would have never gotten the opportunities that I did. Because people don't realize like putting yourself out there does for you. Like you can't be afraid of doing things that scare you, because you never know that's actually going to be the one thing that's going to get you what you want. I was petrified of performing. I'm such an introverted person. I'm very shy. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, you put me like I can talk to people, but am I gonna be the loudest in the room? No. I'm gonna just stay in my corner. I'll smile, wave, and that's about it. But as far as like, I don't draw too much attention to myself. So to be in the stage and then just me by myself and knowing everyone's just looking at me was so terrifying. The first time I performed, I was shaking. I was like holding the mic with two hands because I was trying not to make it noticeable. And I was just stagnant. I remember my sister was like, you were just rocking back and forth on stage. But I was like, it was my first time, But I met another artist there that goes by Jella Mari. She's also from Austin. Me and her go way back. So we've known each other for years. And she's actually the first person that ever really like kind of guided me a little bit when it came to like what to look for as far as like doing open mics or small local shows, because I didn't know anything. She had already been in the music scene, kind of like really getting familiar with which promoter you want to be doing shows for. So she took me to Dallas for the first time, and I was like 17 or 18 at the time. And we do like a small little scratch house show, those small like.
I think I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Q. He was here on the last one that we had. Oh, and he mentioned it. He said that he remembers being on that lineup with you.
That's crazy.
So I was like, damn, that's funny. I was like, she's with us next
week. That's wild. And I feel like I recognize his name, and I was like, I feel like I did a show with him a long time ago, but I've just done like at this point I've done over 300 shows in my life. Like I can't even remember which ones were which. Like I can tell you my first ever time touring in Texas was with the Suicide Boys. And
wow.
Yeah, when I tell people that, they're like, what? You toured? I was like, yeah, I had no business touring with them, by the way, because our music was nowhere near the same. But it was an opportunity. I was like, I'm trying to just get on a stage and be in front of an audience. I don't care what kind. But I didn't know what the Suicide Boys like. I had no idea.
But I'm sure people of their fan base still like were open minded to
like, there was a few people that liked it, obviously. So it was just an experience, and I just kept the more little shows you do, you always meet somebody. There's always someone there. So I kept meeting promoters, and they'd be like, hey, but the thing is, I was paying to perform the first 2 years of me, unless it was an open mic, right? But when you do open mics, you're gonna be waiting there for hours. You're gonna have to see like 30 artists perform. You're probably only get to do one song. Like it was a struggle, but that was what got me.
It's like when you put in the work at that point.
Yeah, and I had to do a lot of small shows before I finally started getting
to the big stages.
Yeah, and then obviously when that happens, it's still scary.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, the first big show I ever got asked to do was to open up for Snow the Project in like 2017, and that was the biggest audience. I went from performing for like warehouse shows in front of like 20 people to like an actual venue in front of like 600, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, I was fully independent, doing everything by myself, just me and my cousin. So it was it was crazy, but from there everything just kind of started falling into place.
That's crazy. And it's funny because like I remember way back in the day seeing Snow open up for have you ever heard of Immortal Technique?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw her. She opened up for
That's
him,
crazy.
and then years later, she was already headlining her own shows and stuff like that.
Well,
So
it wasn't he like one of the first people that really co-signed her?
yeah,
right?
because this was like she was like 3-4 years old, so it was like
Yeah,
10
this
years
was
ago.
a
It was like
minute.
eight years ago about. So
Crazy.
it was a minute ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy because it's awesome, and I can only imagine it's an amazing feeling to know where you've been at, the stages you've touched, and the stages you see now. You know, because I mean, like the appraisal you get now and the attention that you have is well deserving, and it's you know, I'm excited to see how much further you take it. I guess going off of that, what led to your relationship with the Smooth Vega, your manager?
Oh yeah. So the funny thing is I've known about Smooth way before he knew me.
Oh yeah.
And you know, he someone was representing me prior to Smooth. So he was just he knew who was everyone in the city, and he was like, we got to get you on Smooth Vega's radar. He's like, we just got to. And at the time, I had a PR that was assigned to me that the person that was representing me prior had had them working for me, and she knew that Smooth was gonna be throwing a show, and she was like, it was for Kurt Cobain's. She's like, let me get you on that show, and we're like, bet, let's do it. That's a good way for me to like get on his radar. But this was like 2018, I think. So this was a little bit before where I haven't really quite developed as an artist yet. I was still trying to figure myself out. And the funny thing is, I was actually like 50 pounds heavier at the time I met him. Okay. So my image was just like, I was still struggling with my own insecurity. So I was just all over the place as far as
figure everything out.
So it wasn't the best first impression. I think what's the word? The impression wasn't enough for him to remember me.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
you know, and it's funny because he says he does remember me, but I'm like, I doubt he remembers. But, and it's funny because I ended up messaging him a long message maybe a year later. I was like, man, like, I was like, I'm ready to work. Just let me know what I got to do. I was like, any shows you got, like, I got an EPK, I'll send it to you. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, just a long message just telling him, like, dude, I'm ready. Like, just let me know. And he never read it. And he responds a year later. He's like, got you.
Oh shit.
And I always bring this up to him. I was like, remember you just like responded a whole year later and all you said was got you.
Damn.
And I was like, all right, bet I'm just never gonna talk to this dude again. I was like, that was a subtle way of saying like, yeah, I'm not gonna read this long message you sent me. And so I just kind of left that at that. And he finally followed me on Instagram maybe a couple months after that, and he started like subtly leaving comments on little previews of clips I'd post. And he finally reached out to me, and he was like, hey, I'm doing this like little YouTube series. This was during COVID. Okay. And, you know, we couldn't do concerts at the time. You know, everything was just kind of shut down. So he started a YouTube series where it was virtual performances. Okay. And he invited me to do one along with a bunch of other local artists out of the DFW. So that was my first time meeting him, or like really being around him in person. I was really nervous, and I remember we all had to do like a cover of another song, and I chose Chicago Freestyle by Drake.
Oh, okay.
And I did terrible because I was so nervous, and everyone else in the room were like some hardcore like singers. So I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here. But he actually sat me down. He's like, I'm actually interested in managing you. Yeah. And I was so thrown off because I was like, whoa. I was like, hold on. I was like, yes, continue. Like, you want to manage me? Let's keep talking. Talk about it. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, let's just have this conversation. And he was just hitting me up, you know, every other week, like, come down here, let's have a meeting. We're trying to get to know each other better, you know, you know, he's very big about, he treats a management like any relationship. It's like you just go into working with someone. You have to put in the effort. Yeah, and you have to get to know them, make sure that, you know, you also like them as a person. You know, this is someone you're going to go in business with for a while. Yeah. And, you know, he definitely took the cautious steps. We got to know each other, and then he finally later on, he's like, yeah, let's make it official.
At this time, you weren't living in Dallas yet, or you?
No,
were?
I wasn't living in Dallas yet. Okay. So I was just traveling back and forth.
But you were constantly working in Dallas.
Yeah, I was always just because the person that I was working with prior to Smooth, he also lived in Dallas, so I was just going to Dallas all the time for everything. Yeah.
So you build a lot of your network.
Yeah, in Dallas. So that's why a lot of people think I'm from there.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm from Dallas, which is crazy. But I also understand, you know. And then finally we signed, and then maybe like I'm gonna say 3 months later, I moved to Dallas. Oh wow! And after that, things just took off. Like he he already had like a whole plan set up for me. You know,
Just
he was like, I got like 3-month plan. This is what we're gonna do. He's like, I want you to send me all the music you got. So I was just sending him a bunch of songs that were, some of them were finished, some of them weren't finished, some of them were just throwaway records. And he was choosing. He's like, all right, these are the next singles we're gonna drop. He's like, I want to put this person on this song and this one and this one. And he throws me Cap G. He's the first person that I did a song with, which is a song called No Saint. That was the first song I did as soon as I started working with Smooth. Then the second song we did was with Dizzy Wright. And then the third song we did, I believe, was with, I lost the order. It was either Paul Wall or GT Garza. I can't remember who. So yeah. So I had like quite a bit of features like as soon as, and we were just releasing singles.
You're coming in heavy.
Yeah. So and everyone was like, "Who is xBValentine? Like, and why does she have songs with all these people?" But he knew what he was doing. He was like, "People are gonna start asking who you are and why are you working with all these artists?"
That's very smart.
He was smart, and I trusted him like full force. I was like, anything that you're doing, like
at this point you guys had already built a relationship.
Yeah, so you know, we kind of already, like, he knew what I wanted and I understood what he wanted from me, and I've always been very self-sufficient. Like prior to him, I did my own photo shoots, self-timer. I have a DSLR camera myself. I did photography for a long time. Wow. So I was like, I was doing my own photo shoots. I filmed my own content. I also know how to edit videos, and I was doing my own cover art. I was doing everything by myself. Oh, wow. So to him, he was like, well, you know, you kind of already got a good feel for, you know, what you need to be doing. So it just worked out so easily because he's such a coach and I'm such a student, and I've always liked being coached, and I like to improve in things that I'm genuinely passionate about, and he knows how to like really guide me, because I just care about improvement. I want to be the best artist I can be.
With the right feedback too.
Yeah, and he's very, very tunnel vision. Like, he knows what he wants, and I need that in my life. Like, I need someone who's gonna discipline me too, because as disciplined as I like to think I am, I know I can't always hold myself accountable.
I had struggled with discipline so much. So I'm right there with you.
No, it's definitely a challenge.
That's crazy. And I, you know, I had the pleasure of meeting Smooth during South by this past one, and I ran into him at I think it was the Papoose show. I don't know, it was a crazy hip hop show, and he was just there chilling in the crowd.
Oh, it was the Jadakiss. Yeah, I was literally with him, but then I left. I was chilling with him all that night.
And so I just went up and like introduced myself, told him about the podcast. I was like, you know, like I would like to like set something up and just, you know, just work with you, you know, whatever. You know, I'm a fan. I've alreys obviously seen the stuff like that. Gave me his number, and I texted him a couple times, but like I hate feeling like I'm bothering somebody to do something. So like if time comes, it'll happen. You know, it'll be.
Yeah, man. Every time I'm with him, his phone's just blowing up.
I can only imagine.
Like, bro, he be showing me. I'm like, I don't know, my anxiety could never. So I just turn my phone off. Nah, but he's definitely just I would say like he's high demand. Yeah. Everyone's trying to get a hold of Smooth, but nah, I don't know how he does it.
I mean, that's amazing. You're obviously clearly on the right path and everything you've been doing, and so it's cool to see like just how it's been going from you know. And I guess just because you came in with a lot of heavy, hard-hitting features, you know, has there been any favorite ones that you've had? Because I mean, you even did, it seems like you did like a West Coast run, like you had a lot of West Coast features.
Yeah, and that was so unintentional, really. It's just so the reason why I was able to really be able to get all these artists is because my manager actually also routes tours for national acts. Okay. So when someone is doing like Texas run, he's the person they call. Tap in. Yeah. So that he has access to a lot of venues, so they call him because he's the one that's able to set that up. Oh wow. So when they do that, you know, a lot of times there's, you know, a whole deal that's negotiated, right? But within that deal, he can throw in like, hey, you know, what about doing a verse for this much, you know? So it works out because I have like, I don't need a middleman. I have the direct source.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, I'm very fortunate for that. Obviously, I'm very lucky, and you know, like that probably would not happen if I was working with anybody else. So it's just crazy. But I would have to say my favorite feature. I don't know. It's like
a lot of good ones.
I don't know. I want to say the Bone Thugs one is probably my favorite. We were just listening to that because she likes Bone Thugs, so I was like, damn, that is dope. Yeah, because you even had a song with one of our previous guests, Angel Cintron. Oh yeah,
yeah. We had on the show. We went to LA a while back, and she sat down with us, and cool people, good music too. So it was awesome. Once I came across, I was like, what? No way.
Yeah, it's funny because she's real close with my manager as well. You know, you know, he's always been like kind of like a mentor for her, and so I got to connect with her because of him. So when I went to LA with him, he connected us, and me and her just vibed, and she was just so cool. And we had made another trip out there, and my producer is also from LA.
Okay.
She's the one who produces all my beats, and we're just like, we should just go to the studio, us three, like let's just see what we cook up.
Yeah.
And we did, and we ended up coming up with a whole song. It was a little bit different for me, but it was a cool experience because it was just like. But Angel has a phenomenal voice. Like, that girl, God.
Yeah,
her voice
dope.
is so angelic, and she's such a genuine person. Like, very down to earth. Yeah, so.
We met her. She was just the sweetest person and just down to earth. And
yeah, facts.
cool to talk to, you know. So it was exciting to meet her. And I met her through another one of my friends. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sheila. She's from Austin too. She's another artist.
Sounds familiar.
You probably came across her here and there, but like she was doing a lot of big stuff here in Austin. And then she took off to Florida. She's doing it down there now.
Okay.
But no, it's cool. Have you always sang, or was it always like rapping for you? Because I know you do a little bit of both. You're somewhat of a hybrid, I guess. I'd call it.
That's a good word. I like that. A hybrid. I never thought of that. No, I actually started off rapping. I was super into boom bap hip hop growing up. You know, like MF Doom, Madlib, like Big L. Like, I loved to rap, and you know, I was just loved like lyrics and just like metaphor. And I also loved Lil Wayne. Like, Lil Wayne was a genius. And I think just rap in general was just something I so badly or not so badly, but something that just, it was like my comfort zone. Yeah. Because I love to freestyle, and I was always like rapping, you know what I'm saying? So I think rap was just something that came so natural to me, but I would always sing my hooks. Okay. So every time I'd make a rap song, all my hooks were like, you know, I was singing them. And it was my friend, Miko. He actually was the one who told me one time, he's like, the way you sound on your hook, what if you did a song like that all the way through? And I was like sing? And he's like, yeah, just try. He's like, I like the way that sounds. And I was like, all right. So I ended up just like, all right. So it's basically, I'm making like one long hook, basically. So that's what I had to tell myself. Okay. And I did it, and everyone was like, the feedback on it, they're like, yo, like, we love, like, the rap was hitting, but not like that. People weren't receiving it to the way they received the singing stuff. And I was like, wow, I guess I got to keep doing this. Yeah. So I kept trying it, and it was funny because I did a competition in Dallas. It was a $500 grand prize for the winner, and there was 30 artists. And I had just finished, this was the second song I had ever done singing all the way through. It was called Get Paid, ironically. And I was, I think, either 18 or 19 at the time. And it was just me and like two other friends. We go to Dallas, do this competition. And I'm the only female that competed, and I ended up winning that night. Oh, wow. They choose like the top 5, and then they let the crowd like yell for it. And I just remember everyone cheered for me. I would never forget that. And I remember calling my parents like, I just won $500. That's awesome. And it was cool. And I think that moment showed me like, wow, like I just won $500 off of this song. Like, I gotta keep singing. Yeah. And it just like the feedback and everything people were telling me like made it clear like, okay, this is my sound. This is what I need to stick to. But I still hadn't perfected it yet. Okay. So I just kept going with it. I kept trying different things. And this is when like trap soul was becoming a thing. Like Bryson Tiller had just came out. So it was becoming more of a thing. The Weeknd was big. So it was a perfect time to really dive into this new like wave of R&B. So I kept doing it. And I've always loved R&B too. You know, I think that's also why it just also came kind of natural to me. But I just stuck with it. And now I'm here. Now I kind of am starting to bring out the rap more, because I'm like, this is still something I love to do, but it's not exactly who I am. Your main focus, yeah. So I'd like to throw it in there just so people know I can still do it.
You still got it. If somebody wants to get
so
that, you can get that. That's awesome. I guess now, I mean, going to the album, because the album just came out, and I've been listening to it. I had to wait a little bit, but I had to once I finally had no time to sit down and listen to it and like let it fully digest. It's a great project. Thank you. I love the project. And for those that don't know yet, Forever and a Day. Out now everywhere. Yes. I'm a fan of it. I love it. My favorite song is Power. That's the one that we try to share. But like, I feel like that one alone was just like, obviously you had the intro, but then that song alone was just like, you know, you came from, like you said in the first song, you kind of like introduced a little reflection as to where you've been, and then Power's like, all right. Like, let me really show out now. And you just kind of like came here and you just show off, and you're like, just let yourself be known that you are who you are, and you're not going to move. You're not going to stay out the way. And so what was, I guess, the the creative direction for this project when you first started coming up for it?
So the crazy thing is that's probably one of the most like tedious songs I ever worked on, really, because all the other songs were recorded like at my house, in my studio, in my room by myself, like sitting at my desk. Power was the only one I actually went with Clef. He's the one who produced it. He's from San Antonio. He went to the studio in Fort Worth, and I went down there, stayed for a weekend, and me and him just stayed in the studio all day long. And my manager just like, he's like, I'm gonna give y'all some homework. He's like, all I really want is a very powerful soundtrack kind of song. He's like, something we could put in movies kind of vibe. And Clef is a genius. Let me just leave it at that. That man, like I just sat there and watched him make the beat the whole time, mesmerized. I was like, I barely looked at my phone just because I was like, well, this is insane. Like, this man just cooking up and he's making it look so easy. And I was just glad to be there, really. And he made the beat, and I was just kind of like vibing out, and I would start writing like words that were coming to my mind, but I didn't want to like start writing without the concept just yet. So I was just letting him make the beat. And then after, he's like, all right, let's work on the hook. He's like, all right, this is what we want this to be empowering. He's like, let's kind of touch on what it means to you to like be LGBT. What did it feel like to come out? Like, he's like, we can touch on that without being so direct. He's like, and he starts, I will say he helped me write the hook, and he even directed me on how to sing it, because he like brought out a different version of me on that song. And I've never really been coached in the recording process. It's always just by myself in my room. So I don't have anyone there like, hey, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should do that, or do this. It's always just me. I'm like, I had to trust myself. But in that moment, I had someone like, no, like, I want you to do this. He was showing me how to do things with my voice that I didn't even know I could do. He was like, open your mouth more when you sing, or like, pronounce it like this, or he's like, do that little Billie Eilish thing. He was like saying things like that, and I was like, okay. And he's the reason why the hook sounds the way it does, because he coached me to sound that way, and he helped me write it to the point where it was like empowering. We wanted to get the message across. And then he was like, but we want to just hit him with the verse. He's like, we're just gonna come in, the job's gonna come in, you're just gonna hit him out of nowhere. And I was like, all right, like, you got your zone. I was just like, all right, let's get it. And and then we started writing the verse, and he gave me full control with the verse. He's like, I trust you. He's like, but he's like, just switch it up, try to switch it up, switch up your flows. And as I was writing, and that's really, he was very hands-on through the process, and it was just dope to like watch that blossom into the song that it became, because it was just crazy to me. And it's actually like one of my like more prouder songs, because it was out of my comfort zone. And to see what happens when I just trust someone to just guide me, I'm like, wow. Like, sometimes like it's cool doing things on your own, but you never know what you're really capable of when you have someone really pushing you to your limits. You know what I'm saying? And that was a moment where I was like, oh man, like, I didn't know I could do this.
Especially when y'all can connect on that sort of like basis where he like literally is asking you to do some sort of Billie Eilish. Like, you already know what to do, and it just kind of y'all work off of each other's energy, and you can tell on the song, like the song, like I said, it's a masterpiece of the album. It's a great song. Like, it's my go-to. Like, now every time that I listen to, like, as soon as it's over, I have to go back to the song just because like this song, it's a good song. Like, I just can't. But how long have you been working on the project for?
Oh man, I want to say maybe about 2 years. About, I think we kind of always knew we eventually wanted to do a project, especially just because I had been putting out a lot of singles, and especially a lot of features, and a lot of people were starting to be like, all right, like, we get it, you got songs with all these people, what can you do? And I was like, I already knew I'm capable. I put out projects in the past. It's just people are barely getting familiar with me. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years.
You've
like,
been building up
but now I'm like, okay, like, let me just wait. I was like, when I drop this album, y'all are gonna get to see that I'm not just singles and features. Like, I can give y'all the story, but I also have to experience things to give y'all the best story I can give y'all. So, I allowed myself 2 years to really just like, I went through a lot within those 2 years, and I think all of that just kind of really like taught me a lot too in the process. There were songs that were supposed to be on the album that didn't make it on the album because I ended up making something better. And that's really like the cool thing about giving yourself time to we didn't really have like a deadline exactly. I think I was just knocking out songs pretty frequently. And my manager was kind of like, all right, I think we can start working on an album now. Like, we got so many songs to work with. And we started narrowing it down. And when we kind of got like familiar, I like these for sure. And he was like, all right, I'm going to need like maybe 3 more.
Okay.
So those 3 songs were Humble Brag, Smoky Mirrors, and October, and those 3 came last minute.
That's why they're
yeah.
towards
So
the end.
those were some of my more recent. I wrote those literally like within like the last 5 months.
Oh wow.
So I think those songs they even sound more recent. So like Humble Brag, I think that's like one of my other favorite songs, just because like I think it's like an ironic song for me, because I'm not the type of person that I'd be like bragging. So I was like, I'm gonna name it something ironic. So I thought it was like fun to do something where I get to just play around.
Yeah.
So it was cool to just listening back to it. I'm like, wow, like this is really everything I just went through the past 2 years. So it's cool to hear it all.
It's your baby's here. It's everything that you've been building up towards. So it's awesome. How has the feedback been from like, just, I can only, like you said, everybody's been like, all right, like give us something now. Like, what is it?
I mean, it's been overwhelming in the best way possible. I think just because this is like my debut album as, an official artist. Like, I feel like I'm the most established I've ever been in my career. And I think this was a dope way for me to know, like, all right, like I wanted to see where I was at as far as an artist, or as an artist, and the feedback confirmed that I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
And it's showing me like, okay, I did exactly what I wanted to, and I accomplished exactly what I wanted with the project, was to give people an insight of who I am, and to really get familiar with who I am as a person too, because we post things on social media all the time, and if we don't always give people like who we are, it's just like just whatever, it's just. And I think the album is a good way for people like to introduce myself, and people get to know like, oh, like I didn't know you went through all this, but now it gives you perspective. They get a better understanding of who you are as a person instead of just an artist. And that's awesome. I did notice that, as I mentioned, like in the first song, it does gonna give a lot of like in depth into a lot of what you've been through and what has happened to you. I guess just going off of that, if you don't mind me asking, how was it for you? I guess not only as an artist, but just in general as yourself. Was it for you to be able to come out, especially in the midst of like all of this going on? Because from my understanding, it was a few years ago that it just happened, right? Yeah, I mean, so coming out was definitely a challenge for me, because I didn't come out until I was 21. So it's a long time. Every time I tell someone that, they're like, oh my God. Especially like other queer people, they're like, wow, I'm sorry. Because it is tough when you don't allow yourself to be who you want to be. Because it's exhausting.
I would imagine,
like it's so exhausting, and you look at everyone else and you're almost like bitter towards them, because you're like, well, why do you get to be you? And the older you get, the more you start to realize I stopped caring what people think, and I got to a point where I was like, I deserve to be happy. So I decided, like, I'm gonna just be me, and whoever loves it, and whoever hates it, and that's on them. And I think that was important for me to accomplish that, because it was a battle I fought with myself for a long time. And there's a lot of people that are still battling that. I know people who don't come out ever, or there's people who are 50, 60 years old, and
never got a chance.
and it's, I could not imagine that, and I feel for people like that, because it's just not fair not to be able to be yourself when everyone else can, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So I think it was, as challenging as it was probably the best learning experience for me, because now I try to be as unapologetically myself as possible, because I see how important that is. And it's important to show it to the world. It's important for kids to see, like, look, be yourself. Like, just all this stuff on the internet is a facade. Like, people are only showing you what they want to show you.
Online's not all.
Yeah, it's like, it's not all glitz and glamour. Like, there's more to it. And I think that's why I just want, I try to be an advocate about just being you, being real, being your most authentic self, because that's going to get you a lot further than not doing it.
Did you ever feel the need, like, as soon as, like, once you got to that comfort space and you were fully comfortable, like, coming out, did you feel the need to, like, because I know you or I guess express yourself musically. Did you feel the need to, like, run to the studio and, like, draw something, or just
yes, there's so many times, and I still, like, my manager still wants me to write a song about, like, coming out, and it's kind of hard for me to, like, sit down and write about something so specific. I think, it's like in school when they give you a topic about something, you're like, oh,
like, write 5 pages.
Yes, how do I write 5 pages on this one topic? And it's like, I can write maybe like 4 or 5 lines about it, but nah, I think it's just I'm thankful that I have music as a form of expression, because man, if I didn't I don't know how else I would have been able to vent and, like, really express the things that I was thinking. But yeah, there was plenty of times where I was like, man, I really just want to go in the studio and write about this. And I mean, some of the songs on the album are like "What You Need" was one of the first songs I ever wrote about a girl, and every time I perform on stage, I always say that to people. And just because it was a big thing for me. Like, I remember being so scared to release the song because I was like, I don't know how my listeners are gonna feel about me, like, expressing how I feel about another woman. Like, I didn't know how they were gonna take it. But man, that ended up being like one of my best songs. Like, it ended up doing so good. And the funny thing is, the ratio of male to female, I have more male listeners than female. And my manager's like, it's because you love women too. And like the stuff you're saying, like, men can relate. So I was like, I guess you're right.
That makes sense.
So I was like, okay, I get it. I ain't mad at it.
We have the same mindset.
Yeah, so I was like, I guess, I low-key kind of think like a dude, so it makes sense. I ain't mad at it.
I love that. That's awesome. I guess now, I mean, on the album itself, how did you figure out like who to have as a feature? Because I know you were already having like a full lineup of features that you could have picked them, but like how did it come to, because you had D Smoke, West Side Boogie, and Bone Thugs, right? Obviously Bone Thugs,
that was a no-brainer. So Bone Thugs had, like, obviously that was a very significant song for me because my cousin, who I was really close to, he passed away. So me and him were really close, and his favorite rap group was Bone Thugs. Growing up, we were always listening to them, and he just loved them. So when I was able to get a song with them, I was like, man, I can only imagine how he would feel knowing I got a song with him. And that's why I love that song so much, because every time I listen to it, I always, like, I can hear him saying, like, damn, cuz, like, this is, like, I can't believe you got a song with them. I just always hear his voice saying that. And that one was a no-brainer. But with West Side Boogie, I think it's just because Luxury is also, that song just hits different for me, because I'm talking about an experience that I went through recently that I didn't think I was going to come out of. And having West Side Boogie also meant a lot, because he was actually an artist I idolized. He was someone I genuinely was a fan of. Yeah, so to have someone that I have his songs on my playlist, like, I was like, that was a feature that I was like, yeah, we got to throw him on the album. But not only that, because the song just, like, it was also talking about something that was significant to the story I'm trying to tell. And he just came in and just added, like, the cherry on top to that song, And D Smoke, man.
D Smoke's just dope. Like,
that was like, how could I not throw that song on the album? But The Dream, and that whole song, like, it's like my favorite song to perform, man. People be getting down every time it comes on. Like, the beat just makes people dance. But D Smoke just went off. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, just to say I have D Smoke on my album.
That's a plus. That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely it's a top tier list of features to have. So that's even more added on to the already perfection I feel like that you have of a project. So that's awesome, and I'm happy to see that you reached this point and to have a debut really come out like this, and just to have such a network that you have been able to pinpoint that actually just, I mean, I guess one of my questions was earlier that I forgot to ask was, like, since the beginning, because obviously you were building your framework in Dallas, was there anyone that heavily influenced you into telling you, because it seems like since the beginning you've known what steps to take and what people to meet and stick with. Was there somebody who was influencing you throughout? I
mean, yeah, so it was kind of, as far as influencing, I did have, the person that I was telling you that did kind of was representing me. He really kind of taught me a lot of the things I know now, as far as, like, how important it is to, like, introduce yourself to everybody in the room. Like, he might have not known everything as far as, like, the business aspect of things, but he really kind of told me, like, gave me tips on things to, like for shows. He used to always tell me, like, I needed to stay to the very end of the shows, and that's something that my manager still tells me. Smooth, he mentions that, even he does, and that was something I learned from him too. And just, he would put me in studios with people. He was what would I say, like, we're both, like, just learning from each other. We're both two amateurs, He had never really managed anyone before, but he just believed in me. So he was, like, the first person ever to, like, really take me under his wing, like, this is what I'm gonna show you. But it just didn't get as far as we hoped for, I think we ended up drifting apart, and he ended up having a whole other, like, passion, and I ended up, like, all right, we clearly want two different things now. So, everything was all good though, and he was just happy for me that I ended up having someone like Smooth, and I'm thankful that he guided me to him. He was really just someone that had to go with and learn things
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I was still trying to figure out a lot of things on my own. It was trial and error.
No, yeah, of course, and it's very fortunate, and it's cool to see the experience that you've had, because a lot of times nowadays you just hear nothing but like bad stories about people once they get into their foot into the industry, how it's just like doggy, you know, like nobody looks out for anybody or whatever. But it's definitely reassuring, and it for sure gives out a lot of hope to see the experience that you've had. Is there any advice you would give out anybody who's kind of just starting out, something that you would just kind of tell them to look out for or make sure that they do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very adamant about this because I feel like this is something a lot of artists think they need to do, but to not look for a manager. Like, I think a lot of artists have this idea that you need to go and seek one. I was like, but no, like, it's very important to have a manager that seeks you, because that's how you know they believe in you. You have to have a manager that believes in you just as much as you believe in yourself. They have to want it for you just as much as you want it for yourself. And if there's a manager out there that's talking to you and is trying to like squeeze money out of you, trying to like, oh, you gotta pay me to do this, that, like, no, you want a manager that's like, hey, I don't know what we gonna do, but I believe in you. And I just know that I can be the person to take you there.
You gonna make it happen.
Yeah, and that's like, you just need someone who's really like coming to you in a way where like, that's exactly what Smooth did, you know. And he showed me from day one that he believed in me. And I've had other people that reached out like, hey, I want to manage you, but it just didn't come off like, I was like, okay, but like, why? Like, you want to manage me because you like my music, or
you trying
like,
you got
what do you like?
something?
Yeah, it's like, or do you believe in me? Like, do you really believe me and you can take this to the next level? Like, you need someone who is just as hungry. Like, you need that, and you have to understand that you cannot force people to want to work with you. You got to let it come naturally, and it's just important to have a manager that loves your music. Like, your manager has to be your biggest fan.
Somebody has to be able to run it back like nonstop.
Yeah, facts. Like, I will say, like, Smooth be jamming my music. Like,
that's awesome.
You know, and that's important to have that, because you don't want someone representing you that doesn't even, like, you know.
Yeah, doesn't know like what verse or what line they're talking about or anything like that. Yeah, and that is important. I feel like it's very crucial to have somebody, at least on your team, that's like well determined to just make sure that you get where you're supposed to get to, you know, whether it includes them or not, because a lot of times, like you said, you know, people are just, they see some sort of like way that they can I guess win off of you, and then you know that's not what you want at all.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I get it.
Get to know them. You know, it's like any relationship. You ain't gonna just get married with the first person you meet.
True, yeah.
You gotta get to know them a little bit. You know, see if you how are you when y'all get angry. Like, how are they when you get sad? Like, it's important. So it's a whole relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I guess now that the album's out, and I would imagine you kind of feel like you're able to breathe again. From what I hear, just working on a project, and especially something as big as this, it's a lot of stress and pressure that goes on to it. I know that you are now getting to a spot where you can like breathe and take a quick break maybe, but is there stuff that you have already in plan to come afterwards?
A break does not exist in Smooth's world.
Okay.
He's like, we ain't taking a break until we got like 5 Grammys or something. Definitely just, I mean, this is nonstop with him. You know, I think we got other singles we want to drop. I do got a little surprise thing I want to do, so I can't say too much about it. But you know, but it's definitely, I'm gonna stay consistent for as long as I can. So I'm gonna be all up in everybody's face. You know, I try to post as much and just make sure that people don't forget my name. You know, because I think it's for someone who isn't quite there yet. You know, I think it's important to just remain consistent. You know, people forget about people very quickly.
Consistency is key.
Yep, that's facts.
That's 100%. I believe that. I guess now that once that comes around, is there something else that you're looking forward, just personally? Because I know, like, at this point, it may seem like you've been knocking out goals left and right, bucket list, just checking them off the list. Is there something that you have your eyes set on?
Man, honestly, like, okay, so it's funny because I used to always say I wanted to like sell out my own like headlining show, and I actually got to do that. I sold out a show in Fort Worth like 3 months ago.
Oh wow!
It was my first headlining show, and it was super dope. But now I'm like, I kind of want. It was a small like capacity room, you know what I'm saying? But now I really want to start. I want to amp it up. I want to really like headline my own tour now.
Yeah.
And like an actual tour, like, you know, all throughout the U.S. So that's really like where my head's at now. It's like, that's what I want next.
Oh, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, it's like just to have my own headlining tour. But, you know, obviously I'm going to have to put the work in, but I'm excited just to see, you know, how I can make that happen.
Everything's possible. So I'm excited to see I'm excited to see whenever you announce that. I'm like, damn, she did it.
Yep, I'm trying to put it out into the world, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's the law of attraction there. Shit, well, I appreciate you coming out. It's been an amazing conversation. I hope as you keep getting bigger and just more popping, you don't forget about it. Hopefully we were able to keep having these conversations as we go on throughout our journeys and whatnot. As I did mention, before I go into that, I wanted to ask a quick question. Did you say you do speak Spanish? Have you gone into making Spanish music yet?
Yeah, so that was kind of what the surprise, a little bit of what the surprise. So it was funny because it all started because I did a open verse challenge to a Jay Wheeler song. It was a Pacto. Okay. And I did like a little verse in Spanish, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, like we need more." So my manager's like, "That's next."
There you go. So you gotta go to Guanajuato and get that with Santa Fe.
Oh man, that'd be crazy. Yeah, that'd be dope. But we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, now I'm even more excited for that.
Yeah,
I'm glad I caught it. But as I was mentioning off mic, I do like to end on a positive note. Would you like to kick it off, or would you like me to kick it off?
I'll let you do it.
All right. Let me see. I always try to wing these and try to come up with something good, but I guess my only good note that I have for you guys today is it is hot as fuck. It is so hot. Like I am somebody that enjoys the heat and despises the cold. Like I'd rather it be hot than cold ever. Like I wish it was hot all the time, but sometimes it's just like I be catching myself getting pissed off because how hot it is. I was like, why is there sweat in my eyes? You know? And today was one of those days. Today was just one of those days where like the heat was not letting me live it. But the only reason I say that is to say, keep your construction workers in mind. Keep anybody that works in any sort of heat environment in mind. Make sure everybody takes their water breaks. Fuck Greg Abbott. Don't care what he says. Take your water breaks. Stay cool. Take your breaks. If you notice signs or symptoms of heat exhaustion or anything like that, watch your piss. If it gets a certain color, that's what indicates that you're getting heat exhausted and may need to go to the hospital. So just people don't think about this. You know, this is all throughout the year, but especially right now that it's hot. Keep hydrated and keep just drinking your water. Take some electrolytes. Take packets. There's a lot of stuff that you can have to just be safe. Take care of yourselves because I was for years working out in construction and it's not easy to do it. It's excruciating. But yeah, that's my positive note. Yeah, take care of yourselves.
Cool. So I guess it's my turn, huh? Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going to have to bounce off the take care of yourself part because, you know, I just had a conversation with someone recently about how important it is to take care of the interior just as much as you take care of the exterior. You know, if you feel like you're giving it your all with your outside part of yourself, remember, like, hey, it's also 50-50. The same way you take care of the outside, you got to take care of the inside. You can't be good physically if you're not good mentally. So, you know, if you're thinking about other ways to improve yourself in any way, how to become a better person, take care of your mental health. That always comes first, you know. A good, clear conscience can go a long way. So, yeah.
100% agree. It is Pride Month. It is Men's Mental Health Awareness, but it is important for everybody to feel open and just take care of your mental. That's all it is at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be a special month. Like all year around, make sure to take care of each other, take care of yourself. You know, same thing we just said. But before we end, you want to go ahead and let the listeners and viewers know where to find you? Yeah,
so y'all can actually follow me on Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, and Instagram. All of it is going to be the exact same. It's going to be xBValentine, all together, no spaces. And yeah, just make it easy for y'all. That's all y'all gotta type in. Even in Google, you can Google me.
There you go. do your Googles. Find out everything you need to find out. Stay tuned for that tour across the country. Yep. I'm excited for that. Thank you so much for having us, or for coming with us. I'm sorry, I'm getting tripped with my words already. I am Mario from the South Side, and this is
xBValentine,
and we're out.